Hi everybody, welcome back. This is our video where we're going to go through some of the gameplay. I've added a few more components to this board. I've added these green cubes and red cubes which represent land encroachment and devastation respectively. And so you can see here the Byzantine player starts out with 98 base revenue and 1 land encroachment. So they're currently gaining 97 nomisma, but the tribute is at 95, or it's at 15, but it's at 25, but you add it to 70 for the armies. You have 7 steps of army for the Byzantines. They have their Western army here has 3, and the Eastern army has 4. So I've got the game set up. I've got these 9 characters. You can see that they have been given these disloyalty tokens. Now, here you can see the disloyalty tokens are face up. That's actually not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be face down in the real gameplay. And then each player has some cards. Now, I want to look at the cards real quick. This is my hand right here. Oops, that goes there. This is my hand right here. I'm currently the Basileus player, so I control Romanos right here. But I have 3 permanent cards, and I have 3 temporary cards. So every turn you're going to get you're always going to have your 3 permanent cards, and you're always going to get 3 additional cards, up to 3. Um, and you play 2 cards per turn, so you can uh, theoretically cycle through a lot of these other cards as well. But you're always going to regenerate these cards. You may or may not want to play these every turn. So we'll go through how to play those cards. But I've got these 2 coins right here. These are my excess nomisma that I got because I have 97 revenue and only 95 tribute. All right, so let's go through a player turn. So the first step is to calculate power. This may or may not change every turn, but I haven't actually done this yet. So Romanus, you can see here, actually he has 3 ability, that crown icon on his card. So you go up here, and it's actually already on the 3, and consolidation is at 0. So his power level is 3. So that's step 1. Step 2, the Basileus gains victory points. Now you actually will not do this the first turn. So uh, we'll skip that, but how you would do that essentially is the Basileus gets victory points equal to his power, with a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6. So if you increase your power, you get more victory points, up to a limit of 6. So that's a good strategy to do. Well, let's just do it the first turn just to kind of show you. I am the white player right here, so this is going to go up to 3. These are still going to be at 0. Um, okay, so step 3 is to boost nation armies. Now, the nation armies actually start out as high as they can go. So they can go 1, 2, 3, or 4. These 2 Persian armies are already at 4. This army is at 3, but we skip the first turn. We want that to be at 3 for this first turn. But if this were the second turn, that would go up to 4. But it stays at 3. This army is still the wrong color. I still need to update this. This army is also supposed to be at 3 as well. So um, that will stay put for the first turn. Step 4 is to balance the budget. So I've already kind of done that. Um, but during this phase, you have a lot of options. So I'm going to go through some of those options and just tell you kind of what they are and how you would do that. I think that's something that could be valuable here. And so you can see here that to basically whenever you balance the budget, you're adding up the expenses called upkeep, and then you're adding the amount of money you're getting. So it's actually quite tedious if you forget how much money you're getting. But every regular province like Gaza is unmarked with anything. There's nothing in here. just in the name. So that those provinces give you one nomisma. So you would calculate that as one. The province like Pelusium here that has a city icon, that is going to give you two taxation or two nomisma during taxation. And then a city like Alexandria with this bigger icon, this bigger city called a metropolis, is going to give you three. And additionally, your capital city gives you three. And so you're always going to get three from that, three from these larger cities. And so you would just calculate all of the stuff that you have. Now, I will say that if a province has an X on it, like Katabathmos, it does not give you anything. It's a province that doesn't have a lot of people in it, doesn't have a lot of arable land, and so nothing is really grown there, or traded there. So fortunately, I've calculated it for you. You start at 98. And of course, the best way to keep track of this is every time Byzantium loses a province, you reduce their revenue on the revenue chart. Every time they gain a province, you increase their revenue. So that's really the main way you need to keep track of that, because if you don't, it's going to be kind of annoying to calculate that. Now, fortunately, provinces aren't necessarily won and lost all the time, so you're not necessarily going to have to do that all the time. One last thing is this little yellow circle. I forgot to mention this in the first video, but that is Armenia. So Armenia is all these 6 provinces within that yellow circle. So some cards will say in Armenia or something like that. A province in Armenia, that would be one of these provinces right here. So that's what that means. All right, so now your options here for revenue, let's say I wanted to build another army. So that would mean, let's say I did build another army. Every step of your army is another 10. So that would go up by 10, and then you'd have to put this up by 10. It actually doesn't go up higher than 101. But let's say it was at 105. Then you would need to have revenue that's higher than that. Well, I've got it. Well, I've got a problem on the screen here because the numbers just don't go high enough. Um, so let's just say, let's bring that back to 70. Bring this back to 95. So yeah, this is going to be somewhat of a problem because if you do, for instance, high taxation, you go above whatever I have on the screen here, which could be kind of annoying. So you may need to have a piece of paper. I will work on changing that and maybe fixing that. But if you do high taxation, you can see there's two numbers here. There's a 12 and a 24. So if you do step 1 high taxation, you get an extra 12. So this would go up from 98 to 110. So you would calculate that. If you did 2 steps of higher taxation, that would be 24. You would go up to 122. So when you do that, though, you're going to be unpopular. You can't just raise taxes without people making a squawk. So if you do the lower number, you have to pick one of these 4 classes and move their opinion down. So you would be like people -1, which means you move the people opinion marker down. And uh, and then if you did 2 steps, if you did the 24, you got 24 extra coins, you would have to move 2 different classes down 1. So you can get more taxation, but it does cost you in terms of popularity. You can also do lower taxation. By the way, when you do that, you would place this higher taxation marker on the board. Although again, there is an issue that there's not enough spots on here, and so that's something I need to look into. But um, if you do a low taxation, you simply do the opposite. You minus by whatever amount that is. So if you do a -1 step lower taxation, you would go down by 12. So you would keep this base revenue here. This is just how much your provinces could generate on a normal basis. Then you would go down 12. So that would go down to 86, which is up here. So you're down to 86. Um, and so then, you can see here that you've got kind of a problem because your tribute is higher than your revenue. And so that could be a problem. Um, But let's say you wanted to do 2 steps of lower taxation, that'd be 24. So 98, 88, 78, that would be down to 74. So you would go all the way down here. And let's say you decided to take tribute off. You're no longer going to pay tribute to this um, the Avar Cognate. So right now, the game starts out, you are paying tribute to the Avar Cognate. You can see that as 25. So that's why we had it 25 above the army. There's really only 2 things you pay for. You pay for the army and you pay for tribute. Now there's another way. Now some cards will say you have to spend money. So to do that, you have to have extra money to spend. But we will get to that when we come to it. That would be in these coins down here, these extra coins that you can collect as like a surplus. Um, so let's say you wanted to do that. So then you would still have your army. You wanted to keep your army the same place that it was, but now you have low taxation. Well, now you see you have a surplus of 3. So you would grab a third one of those. Um, I wasn't supposed to start out with 2. You're supposed to start with 0. So I have a surplus of, actually, sorry, I have a surplus of 4. So you would grab 4 of those. So 70 minus 70, 74 minus 70 is 4. So that's how that works. Um, you can reduce taxation. You can basically so if you, by the way, if you did take off that taxation, um, the Avar Cognate would go from tribute taking to hostile because they are now angry at the Byzantine Empire. And but if you do that, actually, if you remove taxation, you can become more popular with one class. So uh, keep that in mind. On the on the other hand, if you pay taxation to 2 different armies, let's say you or 2 different nations, let's say you're paying the Berbers and the Avars. If any turn in which you do that, you have to reduce your popularity with one class by 1 step because the people don't like. They think you're kind of a coward if you're just paying off the barbarians instead of fighting them. So you reduce popularity with one class any turn in which you have 2 or more tributes going. Okay, so let's set it back to where it was. So um, I'm just going to have the 2 in the surplus. The tribute thing is going to be on 95, and I'm going to take low taxation off. So now I'm doing back to regular taxation, and I've got this one thing of land encroachment. I didn't really explain this, but basically land encroachment means that either the church or the magnates have taken land that they're not paying taxes on, which is not good. So that's going to reduce the amount of money coming into your treasury. Okay, so um, additionally, you can raise army pay as well. So you can raise army pay, which basically means you're paying the soldiers more. Uh, and so you would see here, you would raise army upkeep. You can do it. Basically, you're going to do it by sorry, it's not based on this number. You simply pay 3 times the total number of units that you have in the army. So you can see, um, uh, so here I have 7 units. I've got 4 and 3, so that's 7. So I would multiply that by 3, and that would take me to 21. So that would be up to 91. So I need to add actually a high army pay and low army pay um, marker here, but that would take you up to 91. And then, of course, you would have to increase the tribute as well. So, there is a lot of balancing that goes on with the revenue. So that's really the only part of the game that's a little bit wonky is you have to kind of understand kind of where those markers go. All right, so once you've balanced but you have to balance the budget. You can't go into debt unless you have some of these extra numisma tokens. If you have some of these extra numisma tokens, you can pay them back to the bank. So let's say I had a certain, a deficit of 2, I can simply pay those back to the bank. But if you don't have those, you have to do something. Now you could also reduce the number of your army. So you could say, I'm going to move, this army doesn't need to be very big. I'm going to make it go to 2. It's going to go down to 2. And then that would obviously save you money. It would mean that this army upkeep also goes down by 10. So that would be an effective way to save money. But the point is, you have to either disband troops, raise taxes, or reduce tribute payments. That's really the only way that you can do it. Um, so you have to balance your budget. In this case, I actually have a surplus of 2, which means I have more money coming in than I'm spending. So I gain those 2 coins. Uh, and so that is step 4. So step 5, and that's going to be one of the bigger steps during a turn. Step 5 is you reduce devastation. So devastation are these red markers, these red cubes or whatever they are in the physical game. And I don't have any of these right now, but you gain devastation when your territories are raided by an enemy army. So if you have some of those, you remove half of them, rounding up. You always round up. So if you have 5, you remove 3, and you always remove a minimum of 2. So those will also reduce your income. So let's say I had one like this and one right here. That would mean I have a perfectly balanced budget, right? I'm because it reduces. So now I'm only getting 95 instead of 97. But I would take those off during step 5. Step 6 is internal army movements. Now, again, I also don't want to do this on the first turn, but you can move your army up to 8 movement points in any direction. So I am actually going to discuss movement in the third video. It's not particularly complicated, but I'll just wait to discuss it then. But you could move, like say I wanted to move this army closer to that side of the map. You can do that as the Basileus, but your armies cannot enter another nation, so they have to always stay within your nation during step 6. Step 7 is remove a disloyalty token. So now, as the Basileus, I can remove any disloyalty token. So I'm going to remove one from Michael and put it back in the bag. And you're able to do that once per turn. But the problem is those disloyalty tokens are going to probably increase more than they decrease, and so you don't want your characters to be disloyal, but you only get one chance per turn to do that. Step 8, you draw and resolve 2 event cards. So this red deck is the event cards. Let's just draw 2 of these and figure them out. Um, so this one says Armenia protests building fire temples, and you can see here it has an evade number, which says 1, or it's 3 if the Basileus is proud or bold. He's actually pious. That's his characteristic. So he can evade it by spending 1 power. If he did do that, you would go to the power chart and you would spend 1 power and the card would be evaded, meaning you don't do the card. The card is not activated at all. But if this is not evaded, then you would move on to the text. It says any alliance or tribute with Persia is canceled. Now, in this case, we don't have any alliance or tribute with Persia, so that doesn't really change anything. The Basileus may spend 1 power to increase any Byzantine army by 1, these are Armenian recruits, and activate it immediately. It may only attack Persia. So if I wanted to, I could spend a power. So that goes down to 2. By the way, power regenerates every turn, so I'll get more next turn. And I could, if I wanted to, I could activate this army, and let's say I wanted to go attack this place. I would go in here, and I could start a battle, or I could go this way, and I could try to go here, and try to siege out that province. So that's what that event card does. They all do something different, but basically you just follow whatever it says. Now, when it says activate, that just means you give it movement points, and I'll explain that when I talk about movement. So that one will be discarded. Well, there's the discard pile. So this one says attacked from a different direction, roll a random nation, except Berbers. So you would just take a die and roll that. That nation becomes inactive. Okay, so in other words, one of these nations is being attacked from a different direction. Let's say it was the Avar Khaganate. So I would go over here, and that becomes inactive, meaning they are not available to be activated right now. Those armies are not, available to fight or to attack. So that is step 8. And then the last two steps are the main steps of the turn. Step 9 is called the planning phase or the plan strategy card phase. And then in step 10, you resolve those strategy cards. So here's my hand as the white player as the Basileus, and you've got 3 that you always have every turn, and you've got 3 that are new. Um, and so the ones that you always have, one of them is redistribute power. So you can either centralize power or you can decentralize power. And basically that means is you're going to change the consolidation marker and move that token either rightward or leftward. If you move it rightward, the magnates are unhappy, and so you have magnate -1. If you move it leftward, the magnates like you, and so their opinion increases. So let's say, now we'll get to that later, but the planning phase is simply where you plan to play 2 cards. So I'm going to play that card, and I'm going to play this card. So what you do to plan them, you just put them face down on the table. So those are my 2 cards, and everybody does this at the same time. So I'm going to go over to the brown player, um, and the brown player is a magnate, so he has different cards. So you have a military rebellion card, so you can always take a military rebellion if you want to. Okay, this should actually say uh, there should be one called Court Rebellion. So that's a misprint in the digital version right here, but in the physical version it'll say Court Rebellion. And then you can always plot. So plotting basically allows you to draw disloyalty tokens from the bag, place one back in the bag, and then place the other one on any character. So this is a good way to make characters disloyal, is to use the plotting action. So let's say I want to do that. So I would put this face down, and okay, that's actually these are the wrong. Well, this one is the wrong kind. I don't want to do either of those. This one is the wrong color, so I'm going to put it back. Uh, I'm going to draw one of these. Okay, Caucasian diplomacy. So I'm probably going to play this card, put it down here. Okay, so, and then of course the other player would also be doing that, but I'm not going to go through that right now. Okay, so step 10 is where you resolve the cards. So what everyone's going to do is they're going to flip over their cards all at the same time. And then you randomly choose the order in which they're resolved. So, uh, except plotting and redistribute power are done at the exact same time. So we would do redistribute power, and then the black player or the brown player would do uh, plotting. So those are resolved at the same time. So in this case, I'm going to choose to increase my power. So what you do is I would move the consolidation track one space to the right, but that makes the magnates angry, so I would have to move the magnate popularity down one. But I think it's worth it because I get more victory points and I have more power. And so then I would actually take this back into my hand, and that's what I do with that one. Then you would go randomly to the next person, but again we do plotting first. So plotting says you can draw 2 disloyalty tokens from the bag, put one back, and put the other on a character. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to draw two disloyalty tokens. There's a 1 and a 1. Doesn't matter, so I put one of them back. And I'm going to put this other one right here because I want this character, John, to become disloyal. So if you remember, if the value of all the disloyalty tokens on a character is 3 or more, that character is now disloyal. So now John is disloyal. So next turn I could do a rebellion with him if I wanted to. And so then, so this would also uh, go back to my hand because these are permanent cards. You always keep them. And then you would go to the next card, or whatever. It could be in any order. But let's say we do this one. You just go around and resolve these cards. This one says roll a die. If you roll a 4+, transfer a province in Armenia from Byzantine to Persian control. The province must border Persia and not contain Byzantine units. And then you gain 1 VP. So you would go out here and you would say, okay, this is the only one that isn't under uh, that's in Byzantine control. So I'm going to take control of this. I actually don't have any tokens to put on there, so I'm just going to grab one. By placing this token, you're indicating that Persia now owns that province. And then, so furthermore, the black player gets 1 victory point, so you go up there. And then, and very important, you need to understand that the Byzantine player now has less tax revenue. So you would need to go over here to the revenue chart, and you would have to move all of these things down 1. So this would go down to 97. The green thing would go down to 96. Okay, so that's how you would do that. And then this card would simply be discarded. It goes over here. It's flipped and put back in there. And so now I'm going to play this card. Basileus receives 3 numisma, so I receive 3 numisma. Move them over there. But I have to choose a magnate to be glory +1, and then I can remove 1 DT from that magnate. So I'm going to go over to John. I'm going to make John glory +1, and I'm going to remove 1 disloyalty token from John. Now I actually don't have anything to mark glory, but you would add a glory token on this crown right here. Okay, so that's how a turn works. I don't know if I gave a full explanation, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to look at the rule book, but that's kind of how a turn works.